In the spring of 1929, a group of well-dressed women walked down Fifth Avenue in New York and lit cigarettes openly in front of everyone. The newspapers called it a moment in the fight for women's freedom. But every step of it had been staged by one man working for a tobacco company. And the method he used that morning is still being used today. It helps decide what to reach for long before you feel like you've made a choice. His name was Edward Bernays, a nephew of Sigmund Freud. He understood something that most people selling things in his time did not. You don't sell a person a product. You sell them a meaning. Then let the product ride it on it. A woman smoking in public was treated as indecent, so Bernays never tried to argue that cigarettes were good. Instead, he took something women already wanted, to be treated as equal to men, and tied the cigarettes to it. He called them torches of freedom. How lovely, isn't it? A man can smoke in public, so why not me? The desire was already there. Bernays simply hung his product on it. And once you see that pattern, it becomes difficult to stop seeing it. Watch almost any alcohol commercial today. There is barely any alcohol in it. What you see are friends, a warm evening, the feeling of having finally arrived. The bottle is just a label glued onto your own longing. You already live inside the finished version of this. 2 decades after that march, the man who inherited Bernays' playbook wrote down in a private company memo what they were really selling. It was not cigarettes. I'll show you the exact sentence. But first, the meeting where everything turned. In 1952, Reader's Digest published an article called Cancer by the Carton. And for the first time, ordinary people began connecting the cigarette in their hand to the illness killing their neighbors. The tobacco industry was staring at its own end. So the following year, the heads of the largest tobacco companies gathered at the Plaza Hotel in New York. They hadn't come there simply to sell more cigarettes. They came because their product was now publicly tied to cancer, and they needed a plan. That plan was not really about the product at all. It was about managing what the public was allowed to believe. And here is the part that should stop you. None of it was a crime. Every move was perfectly legal. Out of that meeting came something with a clean, reassuring name: the Tobacco Industry Research Committee. On paper, it was science. In practice, it was an instrument for keeping the conversation unsettled for as long as possible. Years later, the companies lost their lawsuits, and the flood of their own internal documents became public. 2 things in those papers are especially hard to forget. First, they knew. Their own research had confirmed that smoking caused serious harm years before they admitted a word of it publicly. And second, there was a sentence I promised you. It came from a 1969 memo inside Brown and Williamson. The executive wrote that doubt is their product, not safety, doubt. Because as long as the public believes there is still a real debate, the public doesn't act, lawsuits stall, and cigarettes keep selling. They were not manufacturing a safe cigarette. They were manufacturing your uncertainty. Let me step out of the history for a second and talk to you directly. I'm not a guru. I'm just a guy with horrible accent who quit drinking 2 years ago and finally set out on the path everyone should take, becoming a truly human being. What that means, I cover in another video on this channel. By the time I was 25, there was always a 6-pack in my fridge. It was just there, the way the milk was there. And I never once asked where that habit came from, or who had taught me that this was what a normal evening looked like. So I know the part nobody likes to say out loud. You put together a few months, sometimes a few years. And then, one ordinary evening, you have a single glass, and it all resets to zero. For a long time, I thought that I was weak, and it took me too long to see the real problem. I was trying to out willpower a thing that was built deliberately to break willpower. You cannot fight what you cannot see. The sleep is not a character flaw. It's what happens when you keep fighting the symptom and no one ever shows you the machine. That is the whole reason this channel exists. Not to lecture you about drinking, but to show you the machine, how the wanting is manufactured, and who it actually serves. So if you are tired of fighting in the dark, subscribe, and we will take it apart together, one piece at a time. And it took me a long time to ask the smaller, harder question underneath all of it. If it was only my free choice, why had so much money and so much planning gone into shaping that choice before I was old enough to make it? Because they did aim at the young on purpose. Not because young people are easy to fool, but because a habit formed before 18 tends to stay for life. By the World Health Organization's figures, roughly 8 in 10 children who start smoking are still smoking as adults. That number was not a side effect, it was a strategy. And the government? For half a century, a cigarette was legally neither a food nor a medicine, which meant the agency responsible for regulating foods and medicines couldn't touch it. That gap didn't open by accident, or more precisely, it was held open on purpose, through lobbying and the kind of legal precedent money can buy, until real authority finally arrived in law in 2009. But tobacco was only the rehearsal. The real test was alcohol, because alcohol achieved something tobacco never managed. It made itself invisible. Tobacco, in the end, was pushed to the edges of life. Outside the building, behind the counter, alcohol went in the opposite direction. It became the one drug you are expected to take in public, in good company, as a sign that things are going well. Walk into almost any gathering. Your glass of wine needs no explanation. Your empty hand is what draws the question. Not drinking is what looks strange, and someone will probably ask you why. Sit with how odd that is. A substance the World Health Organization classifies as a dependency-producing drug is in the same broad family as the others, stands at eye level in every store, and appears in the ads during the game. Yet, the one move that needs defending is refusing it. That is not nature. It's the residue of a long and patient design. So, step back and look at all of it at once, not just as business history, but as a tool. Any dependency makes a person more predictable, both in what he spends and in how well he holds up when things get hard. And a person who is busy maintaining a dependency is spending himself on it. His money, yes, but also his hours and his attention. Whatever goes, there is gone from everything else, from his children, from the slow work of thinking clearly about his own life. I want to be careful here, because this is not a story about villains sitting in a room, rubbing their hands together. It's simpler than that, and colder. A system that earns its living from dependency has a built-in interest in creating more of it. Nobody has to give the order. The interest is structural, and it doesn't happen to line up with yours. None of this needs a cigarette anymore. The same method is running right now on the phone in your hand. The feed was built by people who study your attention the way Bernays studied desire. And this time, the product is free, because the product is you. Congratulations. The substance changes, the design doesn't. So the real question was never simply whether to quit something. The real question is what you are willing to see. Because you cannot govern a world you haven't learned to see. And you cannot govern yourself inside that world until you can see it too. That kind of seeing has to begin close to home, with the nearest habit you have stopped questioning. The drink in your own hand is as good a place as any. You don't break it through force. You break it the moment you see that the wanting was built deliberately to keep you spending yourself and to keep you quiet, to control you, your mind and your life. That good evening you think you are reaching for, someone else painted it. And now you know why. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. So start with the glass in your own hand. That is where the whole design begins to come apart.